That's going to put us away from the one microphone. Okay. No problem.
We're not in we're in the there are no margaritas on the back of your rows. Yeah, oh. I volunteer. I can move. I can move. I don't like being on my friend. I go wherever. I know. What's your name? Ask Marta. I don't know. Which is you have? What do you have? Oh, no, he has to go to that. Oh, I never know. Is he the same right now? Yeah, I see it. Yeah. It's a nice place. I didn't like it. And the scar on one side. Right. They're right there. She's right there. It's like you lost your I'm gonna say it almost so freaking loud. Is it the same order that you said? Yeah, but it's like. Yeah, you got fourth round. Okay. I know we can like see. Church. Yeah, but like mine is my church is like yeah, we're on the other yeah. We stay like technically. We're thinking of something. I just like English the other hand. English I don't have
As the stars that shall be bright when we are lost, moving in marches upon the heavenly plain. As the stars that are starry in the time of our darkness, to the end, they remain. They shall grow not old, true North, strong and free.
From far and wide, O Canada,
We stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for
Everyone, please be seated. Remembering and Remembrance. Good morning, everyone. My name is Malcolm Campbell. I'm the Vice President of Research here at University of Guelph. Out of respect to everyone who has taken time out of their busy schedules today to join us here today at this service of remembrance, I would ask you at this point in time, if you would please, to take a moment to silence your mobile phones for the duration of the service. I'd like at this point in time to acknowledge the Adirondack people on whose territory we are sitting today. I'd like to acknowledge the Adirondack people as well as our Anishinaabe, our Haudenosaunee, and Métis neighbors as we work together with them through truth and reconciliation to build better partnerships based importantly on remembrance. And with that, I'd like to remind you all that you are in a hall of remembrance. You're here at Guelph's Service of Remembrance in War Memorial Hall. This place, including obviously this very building, is a place of learning, scholarship, and discovery. We ask you to come and visit the hall at any time, on any day, and you will find that students and instructors are engaged in learning together about a wide array of subjects. It's also, as is befitting today, a place of celebration and ceremony. Just a few weeks ago, we had convocation ceremonies here, and we saw a new cohort of University of Guelph graduates join a family of alumni who now span generations around the globe. And as its name suggests, this is a place of remembrance, built in 1924 through a community movement to remember those who served in the First World War. At the rear of this hall, where wreaths will be laid today, are two facing tablets. One bears the names of students, faculty, and staff members who lost their lives in the First World War. Also, in the hall's chapel are two books of remembrance inscribed with the names of those who served in the armed forces during the First and Second World War. I'd like to take a moment today to remember one individual in particular, not a student of the University of Guelph, but a relative of mine. My name is Malcolm Matheson Campbell, and I'd like to take a moment to remember Edward Matheson as someone who is emblematic of what it is that we are here to remember today. Edward was born in the beautiful pastoral rural community of Dundas, Prince Edward Island in the autumn of 1898. In the spring of 1916, at the age of 17, Edward walked into the local recruitment office and lied about his age so that he could, to the enlistment officer, to join the forces. At that time, minimum enlistment age was 18. So he entered the New Brunswick Infantry and thereby joined the Commonwealth Army in the French battle theater of the First World War. There he experienced all that we have learned about that conflict, its horrors, its terrors, and the common yearning just to return home. In the summer of 1918, on August 8th, Edward participated in one of the most important offensives of the First World War, the Battle of Amiens near Le Somme. In the decimated French countryside, Amiens was a battle waged in what should have looked much like Edward's rural home. Instead, it was some sort of hell concocted out of one's most awful imaginings. It was a battle that turned the fate of the war ultimately culminating in the Armistice Agreement, signed in the early morning of November 11th, 1918, in a secret railway car, in a secret railway siding in that same French countryside. It's that which we commemorate today. I would like to tell you today about Edward's legacy, of how he returned from that terrible battle to his loving family and the farming community he loves so much, of how he fell in love, married the person of his dreams, raised a wonderful family, and enjoyed a fabulous old age, peopled by his friends and family, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren alike. With a legacy of widespread success and happiness, whom he adored and cherished, and that they in kind adored and cherished him as he passed through his twilight years. I'd like to tell you this, but I cannot. Instead, Edward succumbed to injuries sustained in the Battle of August 8th and died shattered, broken, terrified, and so very, very alone. Like so many of his generation, including 65,000 Canadians who lost their lives in the First World War, Edward's legacy was far from idyllic. Instead, Edward's legacy is ours. We must remember, not just on this important day, but every day, that armed conflict deprives us of so very much, and nothing so much more than youth. War deprives us of lives not lived, of memories not created and cherished, of lifetimes of joy and happiness not shared. We must remember this so as to avoid Edward's end. We must save lives. Particularly in a post-secondary institution such as the University of Guelph, we must uphold and encourage thoughtful dialogue, identification of commonalities and shared perspectives, moderation, conflict resolution, and when needed, intervention aimed at peace. At this time, in this week in particular, we must remember those things. Give Edward's legacy meaning. Let us remember and act appropriately. At this point in time, I would now like to invite Professor Alan Filewood of the School of English and Theatre Studies to the podium to share his remarks. Alan.
Good morning. Today, I am thinking of my grandfathers. They both served in the First World War, but they never talked about what they saw or did, at least not to me. And I'm remembering my parents who met and fell in love while serving in the Navy in the war that followed. I'm thinking of the 1.6 million Canadians who donned uniform in the great wars that shaped modern history and the 100,000 who never came back. One of them was my son's great-great-uncle who took his men out on patrol on the first night that he landed in France and never came back. And I'm thinking of the unremembered, of the 2,000 women, children, and men who died in the rubble of the Halifax explosion and are counted today in the official list of war dead. But I'm also thinking of two men in particular who came back from that war broken and traumatized. They are the subjects of my research as an academic. Like many others, they came home with a need to write of their experiences, to testify. But unlike most who did so, they chose to enact their trauma in plays for the stage. Reading the plays they wrote, we enter a kind of time machine that brings their emotions to life. Because theater is about affect, the transmission of emotional experience. We learn what they felt, what they heard and said, and what mattered to them. In these plays, we hear nothing about patriotism or sacrifice or camaraderie. Instead, we witness brutality, despair, misery, and death. They didn't join to fight for their country or their king. William Stabler Atkinson was a young man from England who had come to Canada to take up a homestead in Saskatchewan and failed. He was knocking about the West looking for construction work when the war began. He joined up because it was something to do. He served in the famous 16th Battalion of the Canadian Corps, a battalion made famous by the British war painter Eric Kennington in his painting that you see behind me called The Conquerors. That's what it's called today in the Canadian War Museum. But his original title was The Victims. Simon Jovoish was also an immigrant who moved to Winnipeg as a child with his Russian Jewish family. He was a university student who joined because he was an idealist. He wanted to fight to be part of the final war that humanity would ever need to fight. He served in the 46th Battalion, which the troops called the Suicide Battalion because it had a 90% casualty rate over the course of the war. He took a bullet at Vimy Ridge and came home with his shoulder and his ideals smashed. We're going to hear a lot about Vimy Ridge because next April will be the 100th anniversary of that climactic battle. We'll be told that Vimy Ridge was the victory that gave birth to the modern Canadian nation. But we need to look beyond the scrim of state patriotism to remember what men like William Atkinson and Simon Jovoish tried to tell us in the plays they wrote. And it is this. For Atkinson and Jovoish, the memory of war was something they needed to share with all of humanity, and they chose the theater because the theater is the space of human connectivity. They do not ask us to take up our quarrel with the foe. They ask us not to politicize our remembrance. And they were immigrants. Canada is a nation of First Peoples, settlers, and immigrants, and has grown to be inclusive, diverse, and multicultural. That means there is Canadian experience on every side of every war in the modern era, and those wars are still happening. So today, I think two of my friends who grieve with their lost families in Syria, in Iraq, in Somalia, they too need our remembrance.
Thank you, Alan, for those very thoughtful and thought-provoking remarks. We will now hear a responsive reading. The audience responses will appear behind me on the overhead screens. And I'd like to invite, at this point in time, the readers of the responsive readings to the podium. Zoe Ross, a member of the Central Student Association, Doug Campbell of the University of Guelph Alumni Association, and Marta Thorpe, a University of Guelph Chancellor's Scholar.
They went with song to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. We will hold the torch up high.
We speak here of the challenge of the dichotomies of war and peace, violence and nonviolence, racism and human dignity, oppression and repression, and liberty and human rights, poverty and freedom from want. This must be a world of democracy and respect for human rights, a world freed from the horrors of poverty, hunger, deprivation, and ignorance, relieved of the threat of the scourge of civil wars and external aggression, and unburdened by the great tragedies of millions forced to become refugees. Let the efforts of us all prove that Martin Luther King Jr. was not a mere dreamer when he spoke of the beauty of genuine brotherhood and peace being more precious than diamonds or silver or gold. Let a new age dawn.
We will now proceed with the laying of the wreaths. During the next song, the procession will collect the Rose Bowl and leaves that are wreaths, that are here at the beginning of at the front of the stage, and will proceed to the chapel in the back of the hall to lay them. We will begin with the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl was donated in the memory of RAF Captain John Playford Hales, an OAC faculty member killed in France in 1918. The Rose Bowl will be carried to the chapel by David Hales, John Playford Hales' nephew. The student wreath today will be carried by Chancellor's scholar Marta Thorpe and Zoe Ross from the Central Student Association. The faculty and staff wreath will be carried by Dr. Alan Filewood and Jane Dawkins. And the alumni wreath today will be carried by alumni Heather Robinson and Doug Campbell. The fourth wreath today will be carried by Ifti Sheikh and Andrew Hyde on behalf of the Royal Canadian Legion of Guelph. We will have members of the University Police to lead the procession, and we would ask that you stand during the laying of the wreaths. Please stand.
Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch beyond to hold it high. If we break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep from all these rolling
Please be seated. Lester B. Pearson was Prime Minister of Canada from 1963 to 1968. He was a scholar, a statesperson, a soldier, and a diplomat. And remarks made in his acceptance speech of the 1957 Nobel Peace Prize are seen as being completely apropos to today as they were then. His words are as follows: Of all our dreams today, there is none more important or so hard to realize than that of peace in this world. May we never lose our faith in it or our resolve to do everything that can be done to convert it one day into a reality. I'd now like to invite Ifti Sheikh and Andrew Hyde from the multi-faith team to the podium to continue with a reflection on peace.
This reading is a poem of Federico Mayer, a Spanish scientist, scholar, politician, diplomat, and a poet. He says, "We will plant olive trees where before there were thorns. All of us the same, each one of us different, will walk hand in hand with a new song of love on our lips. We will plant olive trees where before there were thorns." Sharing is the one urgent need in this dawning of a new century. Paz, peace, pax, mir, shalom, salam. We will plant olive trees where before there were thorns. Thank you.
Friends, my name is Andrew, and I am one of the chaplains here, along with Ifti of the Multi-Faith Resource Team. I must admit it is a little daunting to be standing in front of you sharing some words on peace today. The last time I was behind this podium, things didn't go as planned. Through some twist of fate, somehow I ended up having to sing the national anthem for everyone at a convocation ceremony. If you know me at all, you'll know I'm not much of a singer. But there I was, leading O Canada in front of hundreds of strangers on a very memorable day. We did get through it, but for the sake of my nerves and your ears, hopefully nothing like that happens this morning. In John McCrae's famous poem from World War I, In Flanders Fields, he describes how, in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. Have you ever had to sing bravely? I think of the people who have the courage to try out for a musical or audition for a play. I think of brave protesters at places like Standing Rock or with movements like Black Lives Matter, whose songs and poetry give shape to their cry for justice, even in the face of violence. And I think of soldiers and nurses from 100 years ago, young men and women singing and whistling to hide their fear as they marched off to battles like Verdun and the Somme. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do in the face of adversity is to insert a little bit of beauty. A song, a poem, a piece of theater, a beautiful interaction between strangers or some timely encouragement from a friend, a walk in the Arboretum, even a pristine moment of quiet stillness. These glimpses of beauty can be anchors for us in a world that seems by times to be ugly and cruel. Part of the role of a university, I believe, is to make space for the creation of beautiful things. Not only that, the university is a place where we can be trained in the disciplines of seeking the beauty that is all around us. Can we see the beauty that resides in the experience of another? Can we name as beautiful the sincere efforts of those who are burdened and heavy laden? Can we hear the larks singing amidst all the gunfire and noise and clatter below? Friends, it is time to listen and be still. I invite you to stand if you are able for the last post and a moment of silence. You may be seated. When Leonard Cohen died yesterday, he left us with a treasure trove of beauty to encourage and embolden us. His poem, Anthem, begins like McCrae's with a vision of songbirds cutting through the noise of this world. It goes like this, the start. The birds they sang at the break of day, start again, I heard them say. Don't dwell on what has passed away or what is yet to be. The birds in Cohen's poem sing out a call for us to start again With each new day, we must reaffirm our commitment to be people of peace, to work for justice, to protect the dignity of all people. Start again. Recommit. The steps taken by past generations, be they soldiers or activists or everyday citizens like you and me, to secure our freedom, to establish peace, to create a fairer and more inclusive society, they can never be taken for granted. They must be added to, built upon, reaffirmed and reimagined each and every day. Cohen's poem continues. For the wars, they will be fought again. The holy dove, she will be caught again. Bought and sold and bought again, the dove is never free. The work of peace is costly. When we commit ourselves to being peacemakers, we are signing up for a costly task. The Griffin Pledge is one of the commitments we take up on this campus to be people of peace. The things it asks of us: respect, care, determination, engagement, and authenticity, these are hard work. They don't come easy, but they are the ways that we live out our commitment to peace. And the poem continues one more. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. We are all broken in some way or another. We don't always get things right. We don't always say the right thing or act in the right way or harbor the right feelings. But there is something about the commitment of broken people to learn and to grow and to take the next step in the way of peace that is beautiful. Your imperfect commitment to be a person of peace may be exactly what this campus, this nation, this world needs, and the best way to honor those who have gone before. In closing, I am a griffin. You are a griffin. We are griffins who sing together bravely, who offer a beautiful and imperfect gift every day to the cause of peace in this world. May it be so today, and may it be so for all time. Amen.
Before I conclude, Andrew, thank you ever so much for your wise, wonderful, and inspiring words. Greatly appreciated. And thanks to all of you for making the time today as we remember those that have served our country, and that it is because of their sacrifices that we have the freedoms we have today. There will be one final song from the choir, and then there will be a formal procession out. You're welcome to remain in the hall to reflect and leave as you are ready. In the spirit of the words that Andrew shared with us, may peace be with all of you.
I Morning star lights the way, restless green autumn. Shadows gone, break o day, real life just begun.
There's no breakage, no end, just a living on. Wide awake with a smile, going on and on. Going on and on. Going on, I'm just going home. It's not far, just goes by. And on and on. Just